Now, the question of who will do the most to tackle climate change is a very important question for any 2020 candidate, especially since there's a lot of candidates 20 plus on the Democratic side. Now, the reason that it's so important is, of course, we've got around a decade, right, left to get our house in order and to prevent a climate catastrophe by the end of the century. So, no wonder that there are climate organizations out there, Sunlight Foundation, the Sunrise Movement, that are now looking at these candidates, criticizing them. But Greenpeace actually did an actual ranking of these 2020 candidates on climate-related policies. Now, this scorecard ranked all the Democratic presidential contenders, including the two frontrunners, Bernie Sanders and Joe Biden. So now, I want to go to who is higher up in between these two. Again, since these are the two Democrats that are leading the field, that's why I'm going to lead with this. Who is number one? Is it Bernie Sanders or is it Joe Biden? Well, it appears that before I do that, actually, I'm going to give you a quote here from the climate campaign director of Greenpeace, Janet Redmond. She said, quote, "The bar is high because nothing less than transformational action can guide us out of this crisis. Show us you have the mettle to take on the oil executives standing in the way of progress." So now the question is, who has that mettle? Apparently, it's Bernie Sanders out of the two front runners. According to the assessment, Senator Sanders has championed bold climate action for years, and that has earned him a B plus. Not bad. Now, they back that grade up with this quote: "In Congress, Senator Sanders co-sponsored the 100 by 50 Act and the Keep It in the Ground Act to cut off federal support for coal, oil, and gas, while ushering the 100% clean energy by 2050. Now, some of the metrics that they ranked these candidates by was their basis of support for things like the Green New Deal, commitment to rejecting fossil fuel money, and other metrics. So it doesn't surprise me that Bernie Sanders is actually very high on the list. Senator Sanders, they said, quote, co-sponsored the Green New Deal resolution and has pledged to halt new federal fossil fuel projects if elected. But, and here comes some criticism here, has yet to call for a full managed phase-out of the fossil fuel industry. Now, that is really important. Now, they also said that he has yet to put forth a detailed plan to tackle the climate crisis. They said finally, keep it coming, Senator Sanders. Okay, so look, they saw what he did. They critiqued him for what he hasn't done yet, and that's great. I think he's earned that B+, and I think it is fair criticism, right? Now, Bernie Sanders basically is great on the climate, but he could always be just a little bit better. Fair enough. So now what about the appointed front runner for the Democratic Party, Joe Biden? Now, Biden didn't do quite as well. They said, by contrast, Biden has neither backed the Green New Deal nor taken the no fossil fuel money pledge, a vow to reject any contributions over $200 from PACs, lobbyists, or executives of fossil fuel companies. Now, Greenpeace did point out something positive by saying that while Biden introduced the first ever climate bill in Congress back in 1987, he has yet to release a plan that tackles the climate crisis if elected in 2020. Therefore, they gave him a D-. Sad. Of all the Democrats in the race, Biden is dead last. Now, I want to show you an image, of course, of all the rankings here, and show you where Joe Biden is and where Bernie Sanders is, as well as all the rest. Let me show you that here. So you have Bernie Sanders and Cory Booker, interestingly enough, have B+. Gillibrand, Warren, and Tulsi Gabbard are a solid B. Beto O'Rourke, B-. Williamson, Buttigieg at C. Harris, Swalwell, Klobuchar is C-. Delaney, Yang, Castro, D+. Steve Bullock, Democrat, has a D. Tim Ryan, Joe Biden, and John Hickenlooper, all at a D-. Sad. So now, why is Biden dead last? Well, I'll give you some more details here. Now, according to a Reuters report earlier this month, Biden's 2020 campaign is crafting what they call a middle ground approach to the climate crisis that would reject progressive demands for a transformative action while leaving the door open to so-called fossil fuel options, or what is now known as freedom gas, thanks to the Trump administration. They also said that Biden has not endorsed the Green New Deal nor committed to phase out fossil fuels. All candidates must pledge to make bold action a day one priority. What will Biden do? No, I have the answer to that. He will continue to take corporate money from fossil fuel companies while doing a few token actions. Again, he's from the Obama administration. And so he's going to take a few actions here and there, a little bit of moderation, things like maybe the Paris Climate Agreement, which he would call, transformative, right? And a few basic regulations. This is how Biden would govern. And by the way, something that is pretty much tangentially related to that is Biden on healthcare. Now, there was a report that came out that during the fight for the ACA, or I should say before the fight for the ACA, when the Obama administration had just gotten into office, they were trying to figure out what their legislative priorities would do. Biden went on a 10-minute rant, or tirade they called it, against doing the ACA. So, and what he had been arguing before, of course, is to do incremental, small reforms in lieu of doing something that is bold and transformational. So that is who Joe Biden is. He will always choose incrementalism. He will never be bold, and he will never be progressive. And unfortunately, that is not what we need in this current age. We need bold action. We need something that is transformative, right? So now, Biden's at the bottom. Sanders is near the top. In fact, Sanders is second, tied with Cory Booker. Who's number one? Turns out, Jay Inslee. Now, that is the former Washington governor. Now, Inslee, Greenpeace said, has laid out the most detailed plan of any candidate so far that's right in line with the Green New Deal and championed bold action as governor of Washington state. And to be fair, Jay Inslee is running on a 100% green energy, Green New Deal agenda. So that is his issue. And I think that's great. Now, Common Dreams reported that Inslee's $9 trillion climate plan would transition the United States to 100% renewable energy by the year 2035, while aiming to create millions of jobs, which, of course, is the whole goal of the Green New Deal. And for that, he is given an A-. And look, to be honest, you got to give him credit. That is a bold plan. Now, interestingly enough, someone else who was rated by Greenpeace was President Donald Trump. Now, he received, and you're not going to be shocked, an F. But not just an F, but a 0 out of 100. A 0. To be fair, I'm pretty sure Donald Trump saw a lot of Fs and zeros during his time in school. Let's be fair about that. But Greenpeace said, quote, far from championing bold climate action, President Trump has denied the reality of the climate crisis and actively promoted fossil fuel production at the expense of communities and a safe climate future. And also, let me add that, and this was a story that I recently covered, the Trump administration has decided to refer to fossil fuels as molecules of freedom. To be fair, that was Rick Perry, but still, part of the Trump administration, and I'm sure Trump would go along with it as well. But if there were a lower score, I think Trump would probably get it. But seriously, though, that's not a surprise. But Biden's a Democrat. He's supposed to be better than that, right? No, he got a D+. So, I'm sorry, we don't have time for Uncle Joe and his middle-of-the-road crap, or any of the other Democrats that are not for the Green New Deal. That is a litmus test. It has to be. We have to have a litmus test, and that has to be it. Now, in a statement, by the way, on Thursday, Redmond did stress that, quote, we are in a climate emergency. In 2020, true climate leadership means nothing less than saying yes to a Green New Deal and no to fossil fuels, in case that wasn't clear to you. And if you want the young vote, especially among progressives who actually do care to live in the future, you've got to support a Green New Deal. And the fact that Biden is not interested in any of that, it really does show you who he'd rather represent. Hey guys, hopefully you enjoyed that free video. Now I'm going to have to ask you a favor. Between the demonetization and the YouTube algorithm messing around with view counts, etc., we're having a hard time adjusting to the new YouTube reality, which is where you guys come in. See, we have a Patreon, patreon.com/TYTNation, set up to help us rely on you guys, the viewers, instead of big corporate ads. Look, you know the show. You know how I'm not in favor of big corporations anyway. So help us transition away from relying on the ad model to pay the bills and sign up to be a patron, patreon.com/TYTNation. That goes a long way to help us keep the lights on. And you guys will know that you're supporting independent progressive media.